very, very much for this really inspiring piece. Now I have many questions and I will contact you. Beware. Yes. I just can't imagine how we used to work 30, 20 years ago before all this information was in the net. I mean, what did we do? I mean, what does it mean? What does it say about what we have done? Okay, never mind that. Okay, let me open now the discussion. Please come back, okay? And I guess you have many questions about culture, identity, heritage, past, memories, and, well, where is the future? Please. Yes, Dina, please. Wait.
אחת, שתיים, לא, זה רק אני שומע, אל תדאג. אחת, שתיים, היי. אני סוגר אותו פה, כן.
Feeling,
according to Halacha or not? According to Halacha or not? The libraries, you mean? Okay.
Maybe
Yes.
maybe I start to your.
No, I think
Maybe
it's
we
a kind of
answer the first question.
yeah. I think we should answer this one because this was a grave question. Okay.
So I will start. So you answer the question by yourself because what is Jewishness? What is homogene in the communities? I cannot tell you. For me, it was interesting. Not the Russian Jews in Germany, as I told with the poem. How do the German Jews feel now, or what is their identity in Buenos Aires, South Africa, or wherever? And for me, it was really interesting that they have such a deep culture inside. And this is a question for me: why is it so? So this is my interest to see. Yes, and
I would like to use a microphone as well. Your question wasn't a question because I agree with you totally. I try to show how complicated to decide and how they, the father Jews, they are part of different controversies and discussions and debates, and no one can get out of this. So this is a problem, but for me was also, and maybe especially interesting to see how in these discussions we see the emergence maybe a new Jewish identity through these discussions around or surrounding father Jews.
Thank you very much. I mentioned at the start of my presentation that my focus is on work done by non-Jewish organization institutions. So it was not part of the presentation, but I thank you for your question. It's an occasion to mention this fact. There are a lot of work done by Jewish organizations like Jewish museums in Germany, but I didn't mention that especially because I wanted to focus on work done by non-Jewish organizations like state institutions, libraries, universities, local government, and so on, and of course private individuals and organizations. Thank you.
I'd like just a comment, please, on the very learned lecture of Dr. Kotowski. I'm Naomi Merchav of ארגון יוצאי מרכז אירופה. It's the Association of Israelis of Central European origin. And since I'm in charge of Olim Chadashim in our organization, that means Jews or non-Jews immigrating from Germany to Israel, and I have a comment saying as follows, that those immigrants coming now are of the age of 20, 28, 30, who arrived in Germany end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. And upon coming here, we help them to translate their resumes and with all kinds of government offices. What I like to say is that they really talk very highly about the open reception they got from the population in Germany upon coming there. And they've been very grateful for education and their open hand. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, please.
I don't think I need it. Thank you all for your very interesting presentations. I didn't know what research but my question is more towards Erica and Julia. I know that working with the Kantor Center and also actually a lot of public
Speak up and slowly.
Okay. At the end of the
Okay, thanks. My name is Antonia Schmid, and I'm fellow at Dina Porat's Kantor Center and also at Carrera-Kotowski's graduate school back in Potsdam. So I'm very interested, and both of you touched upon the question of Judaism versus Jewishness. And especially Julia, you were talking, well, actually both of you were talking about hybrid identities, identities as being chosen actively, identities as agency, but also about the boundaries and exclusion of problems of inclusion and exclusion. So this made me wonder first if identity, how much exclusion needs identity, or the other way around, is there identity without exclusion? And secondly, is deconstructing identity a privilege of those who already belong unambiguously? So how far, I hope my point is coming clear, that the question of you already have to belong to think about what different places and worlds you can belong. And I'm wondering if there's a way to include people, taking that example of the Russian Jews, if there's any way to include them, because they're already the majority, like you said. But is integration always a problem of majority and minority? So I'm just posing questions, and I hope you can answer some of them.
Oh, big questions, but I'm not the right person to answer the question, should we include or should we not include. I try to show that there is a process, and there are some who, like Bonir, are hoping to find a way. But we are so on the way.
It is a question of the age, I think, of the people. I think like Lena Gorelik, for she, it is not anymore a problem. She arrived in Germany, and she said, our Germany, yes. And I think it costs some more generation, and I think then the question is obsolete.
If I may make an observation and a question. Since listening to especially to learned ladies, the thing that I find most significant is not the individual case. For example, the gentleman in Argentina was born in Germany, hence remembered, I don't need this thing, hence remembered from his childhood. But it's obvious, any child will remember, never mind it's born in Germany. If it would have been born in Zululand, it would have remembered what happened in Zululand. I don't think it's significant. I think the significance of today's discussion is, that's how I understand it, is there a future for European Jewry, perhaps Jewry in the world, European Jewry, based on the complexity of the current position and the various, all the points raised by the speakers today? Well, to me, being a non-academic, things are very much simpler. I think that there is an answer. And the answer is we have to go back to our history. There is nothing new under the sun, as Kohelet has said. Now let us look at ourselves. We have been in terrible difficulties. Perhaps the extreme was after the destruction of the temple, Yochanan ben Zakkai and Yavne. I don't have to repeat it to you. Now the crux is, and this is the point I'm trying to make, there is only one way the Jews have ever survived, irrespective of all the different movements, which again I don't have to mention to all the learned people here today, and that is based upon our religion. Our religion is unique. Now please don't get me wrong, I am not a religious fanatic, no way, but I am aware that our religion possibly is based on the 10 Commandments and the rest is commentary. Now unless we teach our young people, I'm getting to the current, who we are and why we have no future. We do not have a future as intellectual scientists, You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be an academic. You don't have to be a great genius. The Jewishness in us is the uniqueness, and it is based on the religion, and one other important factor which is often overlooked. We are the only people in the world, the only religion where it has been compulsory to teach and to learn. No other peoples could write and read throughout 2,000 years of diaspora. So whilst all there are problems with Russian immigration and this immigration, the point is you're always a Jew if you're born a Jew, but how active you are and what you're going to pass on depends upon how much of your tradition, which I call religion, you teach, and our tradition is our religion. Thank you.
Well, it sounds like a blueprint to the future of Judaism, which is actually okay, good. I mean, now try to persuade more Jews about what you think. That's the only problem. Of course you are right, but just try to find other Jews who agree with you. This would be a tiny problem. Let's see what happens. I don't know. By the way, it reminds me of talking about Germany. I was just reminded that, a few weeks ago, I think I read, a few months ago, that Spain was willing to give citizenship to Jews who left Spain a few days ago, a few months ago, a few years ago, 500 years ago, whatever. I mean, so things are very flexible in Europe, I think. And if you need immigrants, you are willing to bring up people you once banished. I mean, so it's all about policies, and maybe it goes back to money, but I don't know. Please, another question, maybe the last one, if we have another remark. I didn't see that. Sorry, it's because of the lights. I couldn't see.
Yeah, that's fine.
We really can't see it. Yeah.
I just want to make a very brief comment to the question of the construction of a new identity, Jewish identity, especially concerning the migrants or immigrants Jewish immigrants to Germany. And I think what Dr. Kotowski had said previously, it really is a matter of the generation of age. And there I want to connect to what Professor Porat has said, that there is really a new concept of identity arising that has nothing to do anymore with what German Jews, like you talked about in Argentina, this old gentleman. He has a total different concept of identity per se, not just Jewish identity. And this homogeneous core of identity, it doesn't exist anymore in nowadays definitions. And I think that Julia talked about globalization and so on, and this new pluralistic concept of a pluralistic society will impact the new identity, Jewish identity also in Germany, with all these groups of Russian and American immigrants and Israeli immigrants and so on and so forth. So obviously, excuse me? Yeah, I mean, everything, it will impact this, there will be a new concept of identity that arising, and that will impact the Jewish identity. And obviously the answer hasn't been given. And I think also, and I agree so totally with you, Professor Porat, I think the Jews are the postmodern people. They always had this pluralistic identity, and maybe it wasn't acknowledged, and German Jews especially in the 19th and early 20th century, they felt they had to have a German identity. But I think what will be emerging slowly is a pluralistic identity, where Jewishness will be a part of a pluralistic identity. That's just in brief.
Yeah, I would like to, I want to say something. It reminds me of what you said now, what Stalin used to say about Jews in the late 40s, calling them cosmopolits. It was not a very positive evaluation of Jews. I know Jews about postmodernists, yes, but they're also pre-modernists. I would say, and this would make them so unique and so interesting maybe. Probably we talk about Jewish sensitivity that will never disappear, but I want to remind everyone, if I may say, before I give you the last word, namely that Jews in Europe, I'm sorry to say it, but it's a fact, they are a minority. And minority has a certain way how to move among majorities. Well, Jews in Israel, by the way, are a majority, which is a very different issue, which may explain certain differences. So it's the issue of minorities, and actually we deal with our minority work with a terrible memories of what happened, and what can again happen. I mean, so this is the real story. It's not about Jewishness to a kind of a beautiful thing that we can give anyone. It's about survival of minority in a very tough place, whatever ideology it professes now. Europe, I mean. You see that I'm a little skeptical about Europe, yes, but whatever. But I don't want to continue. Please, the last word is yours. Identity, culture, heritage.
It wasn't a question. I agree with you, with your comment. Yeah.
So they agree with you, they don't agree with me. Yeah, Professor Prof. Yeah? So this will be the last comment.
This will be the last, and then everybody can be 12. And then everybody can agree with you 12.
Yeah.
There is, I assume everyone sitting here almost knows that there is an ongoing controversy raised by or initiated by the famous author Aleph Bet Yoshua with his questions regarding the origin of Jewish identity and his quest for one root of anti-Semitism. That he thinks that one can find one root for anti-Semitism despite its all varieties along centuries and places, and this root is the unique nature of Jewish identity, which is, I think, if we take a look at all the world, perhaps I'm wrong and one can add more, there are only three groups, the Jews, the Armenians, and the Druze, who have a religion and a nationality, and that's it. A combination of a nationality and a religion. And others are, let's say, Christians in Belgium, in France, in Arabs or Muslim here and there, in many other countries. But only these groups have it combined. Okay, and this is Lazarus, my dear friend Bernard. I said before that once they modeled you, unfortunately, they threw the key of this model and there is just one Lazarus. We all wish it could have been that simple. That simple, because what you said doesn't solve the question of who is a Jew. And of that difference or of that combination, between religion and nationality. You see? Had you been right, and had it been so simple, just to be a Jew, you said, and forward it to next generations. Okay, but who? Yeah, the only. Okay, I think that's too much.
Nationality and culture. And those that, you have to think about the young generation. When you look upon the young generation, many of them moved away from religion, okay? You don't have a nationality, then you have to be in Israel. The third item is culture. And if one develops the culture, now the only real culture that develops in the world, Jewish culture today, is in Israel. And the only way that you can hold on to the young people is to develop in them the identity of culture, both in history and what is going on today. That's my opinion.
Okay, so I will conclude this session with one sentence which is a little paradoxical, but say the center of the Jewish people today is in Israel because this is the center of the yeshivot world. They come here to study. Not the universities, by the way. It's the yeshivot. That's what... This is the center of the world. Think about it, what it means for secular Jews like us. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you all for your contributions.
We shall meet here again at 12 o'clock. Participants are invited to coffee and maybe a cake. Gallery number 2. It's on the right.
תודה. באמת תודה.